Breaking tonight, just one day after we saw the Islamic State terrorists executing some 21 Christians, we are hearing that not only were another 45 innocents reportedly burned to death by ISIS, but that a group of U.S. allied soldiers could soon suffer the same fate. Good evening and welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. As if the weekend images of these poor men walking to their deaths in Libya were not horrifying enough, we are now seeing video of U.S. allied Kurdish soldiers being paraded in cages that appear eerily similar to the one in which a Jordanian pilot was recently burned to death. 1 man per cage. And as ISIS continues its horrific death and propaganda campaign, back in Washington, the administration is kicking off a 3-day summit on, quote, violent extremism, talking about fighting the terrorists on the internet and arguing that not only can we not, quote, kill our way out of this, but that the key to winning could be job creation. Here's the Deputy State Department spokeswoman, Marie Harf.
We're killing a lot of them, and we're going to keep killing more of them. So are the Egyptians, so are the Jordanians. They're in this fight with us. But we cannot win this war by killing them. We cannot kill our way out of this war. We need, in the longer term, medium and longer term, to go after the root causes that leads people to join these groups, whether it's lack of opportunity for jobs. We can work with countries around the world to help improve their governance. We can help them build their economy so they can have job opportunities for these people.
Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is live tonight on those controversial comments from the White House. Ed?
Megyn, the bottom line is this gruesome body count is now 66 in just a couple of days because of those Christians who were killed, you mentioned, as well as the Kurds today. It comes as the president met with his new Defense Secretary Ash Carter and again insisted he will defeat ISIS. And Vice President Biden, meanwhile, kicked off that summit that you mentioned on violent extremism. Interesting that the vice president declared we need answers that go beyond just a military solution. That's why Marie Harf suggested maybe you could use tools like social media. Maybe there are economic tools that can also battle terrorism. But it was so controversial that Marie Harf went on CNN tonight to try to clarify. Meanwhile, I pressed her colleague at the State Department, Jen Psaki, to clear up what was going on a conference call. Listen.
We cannot kill every terrorist around the world, nor should we try. How do you get at the root causes of this? Look, it might be too nuanced an argument for some, like I've seen over the past 24 hours, some of the commentary out there, but it's really the smart way that Democrats, Republicans, military commanders, our partners in the Arab world think we need to combat.
So just to be Marie Harf, your colleague last night, I think it was on MSNBC, saying that we can't win this war by killing them when she was talking about ISIS. What was she trying to say there?
Yes, the military component is important, and we've done thousands of strikes in Iraq and Syria. That's continuing to pick up, as you know, and you've covered quite a bit. But we also need to delegitimize ISIL.
Now, Harf also made the point that former Republican President George W. Bush said that fighting poverty is also a tool to go after terrorism. But retired General Jack Keane, a Fox News military analyst, told us today, yes, those tools are important, but much more important in terms of battling terrorists is killing and capturing them. Megyn?
Ed Henry, thank you. Joining me now with more, Mark Thiessen, a Fox News contributor and an American Enterprise Institute fellow. And Mark, Marie Harf was mercilessly mocked on the internet today because people felt she was suggesting, you know, if only we could get these guys into community college, you know, and set them on the road toward gainful employment, we would have no more people who believe this. Let's just watch a little bit of the way ISIS views the world. This would be eradicated if only we could, you know, community college is the way. Watch.
Allah is with his believers, and it is he who directs the RPG grenade, punishing the enemy with the hands of the Mujahideen.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when you say that we can't kill all the terrorists, nor should we try, you've pretty much gone off the deep end. I mean, look, it is absolutely true that we have to try and kill all the terrorists, and we also have to defeat their ideology by offering the alternative of human freedom, which President Bush did say repeatedly. But the problem is you have to do both of those things, and President Obama isn't doing either of those things very well. If you go back to and sometimes, by the way, the best way to defeat their ideology is through military action. In 2007, when we launched the surge, that was both a military and an ideological defeat for ISIS, which then went by al-Qaeda in Iraq. It was a military defeat because we drove them from their safe havens, but it was an ideological defeat because they had come in to rally the Sunni masses to drive America out, and instead the Sunni masses joined with America to drive al-Qaeda, now ISIS, out of Iraq. So that was an ideological rejection by the very people they claim to be the vanguard of. So that's how you defeat their ideology, is by rallying Arabs and Muslims against them to reject their ideology. And the way you do that, you have to defeat them militarily. That's what we're not doing today.
How much of the backlash against Marie Harf on this has to do with the fact that she works for an administration that refuses to identify the enemy as what we all know it is, which is radical Islam? So she's coming to this debate already hampered because the administration refuses to be clear in who the enemy is. And then when you hear people trying to downplay it, or at least that's how it's perceived, that she's trying to downplay the battle by saying this is all about getting them jobs, she was sort of set up to fail.
No, you're absolutely right. And look, George W. Bush could say a similar thing, but he was going out there and actually leading the surge to defeat ISIS. And so when he said we also need to bring the hope of freedom, it wasn't seen as a dodge from actually doing the hard work of it. And he also called it radical Islam. You cannot, this is the problem, is that right now Barack Obama is doing neither of these things well. He's forcing our military to fight ISIS with one hand tied behind our back, fighting them from the air when every military commander has said you cannot defeat them without some boots on the ground. So they can't be, we're not defeating them militarily, we're just pinning them down a little bit. And then ideologically, he's a conscientious objector in the ideological struggle against violent Islamic extremism. He won't call it by name. You cannot defeat their ideology when you dismiss them as JV terrorists.
But here's what Eric Holder said today. This is like much ado about nothing, and it's really just a Fox News invented issue. Listen.
More time talking about what do you call it as opposed to what do you do about it, you know? I mean, really, if Fox didn't talk about this, they'd have nothing else to talk about.
So it's us.
Yeah, exactly. The problem's it's not me, it's you. That's the problem. Look, the fact is, they're not doing what's necessary to defeat these people. They're forcing our military to fight them with one hand tied behind their back.
But he doesn't think it's important to name the enemy as radical Islam. He doesn't think the naming of it is important.
It is important, but put it aside. Put that aside for a second. Saying that the threat it pales compared to global warming. Saying that people who were targeted in a kosher deli weren't targeted because they were Jews, or refusing to say that the people beheaded in that video weren't targeted because they're Christians. They were Egyptian citizens. They are congenitally incapable of speaking the language that is necessary to defeat the terrorists in an ideological struggle.
The irony is that their own former DIA, director of the intelligence agency, went on Fox News Sunday just this past night. He's been sounding the alarm on this for a long time now, saying it is important to name it. It is, and here's why. Listen.
I think what the American public is looking for is they're looking for moral and intellectual courage and clarity, and not a sense of, and I just say as passivity or confusion. You can't defeat an enemy that you don't admit exists. And I think that we have to clearly define what the enemy is. That's number one.
Lieutenant General Flynn does think this is an issue, not a Fox issue, Mr. Holder. But the question is whether the White House will ever agree as they hold a summit about violent extremism.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just important to name them. If you can't name them, then you can't talk about their ideas, and you can't debate their ideas and explain why their ideas are repugnant. So this is the problem, is that you have to take the words of the enemy seriously. The al-Qaeda has been very clear about its intentions. They have said that they're coming after us. They have said that they are going to create a caliphate that's going all the way from all the lands of the Muslims once occupied, from Middle East to Spain. They have a clear ideology and a clear objectives, and you cannot debate those objectives and show why they're bad if you won't even name the ideology. So that this is what the problem with their refusal to say this is.
Mark, good to see you.
Thanks, Megan.
Well, some of the world's best-known Christian leaders are now reacting to these executions with an ominous warning about a, quote, coming storm that cannot be ignored. Britt Hume is next on that. And then a crowd of angry union protesters descends on Governor Scott Walker's house, where they proceeded to yell at the governor's elderly parents. In a Kelly File exclusive, Scott Walker is here live to react on whether a new line has been crossed. Plus, the president is vowing a fight after a court just halted his executive order on immigration. Tonight, Senator Ted Cruz on why he thinks the president's plan is now going nowhere.
With respect to the ruling, I disagree with it. I think the law is on our side and history is on our side. And we are going to appeal it.